Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me out back?
Yes.
Yes, great. I'm so happy we have such a good turnout. We work really hard during the year to monitor our lakes and to educate people. So it's rewarding to us to see more people involved. A couple of things. We have an invasive aquatic plant guide that's in color, which is really nice. This is for sale for $20, or if you are a lake rep, you get them for free. We also have Community Lakes Association hats, and that's $20 also. And we also have two guest speakers today. We have Sarah Miller and Tim Coombs. They're going to do a presentation. We sent them a list of questions. And then we have Susan Gallo from Maine Lakes, and she's going to do a presentation as well. Maine Lakes is a very important organization in Maine, and if you would like to sign up for their newsletter, I will pass this around and have you fill it out. We'll start right there. So Sarah's a Maine game warden, and she didn't know that, always know she wanted to be a game warden. She didn't grow up hunting and fishing. And she taught herself to hunt. And before we ask questions, maybe we could get Sarah to tell us what she loves to do, and Tim as well.
Sure. Like she said, I'm Game Warden Sarah Miller. I've been in this area probably, and that's the Bethel district, for 5 or 6 years now. I lived over this way before I was a game warden for a while. Worked at Sunday River like a lot of folks around here, and kind of wanted to come back to Western Maine. But like Cheryl said, game warden wasn't on my radar when I was a young one, a child, but as soon as I got older, I was kind of leaning towards law enforcement, and I'd fallen in love with hunting and fishing, and it just seemed like a really good fit. And I had some retiree game wardens that helped encourage me along the process, and applied and never looked back. So I'm in, I think next week will be 14 years of my career, so been around long enough to know enough to get myself into trouble, I guess. So happy to be here today, and our presentation essentially is more of a kind of a question and answer period for you all to ask the questions that you have. I have quite a list that we're going to try to get through, but I'll let Warden Coombs introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Tim Coombs. I have the, what they say is the Lovell district, but I have from Albany up to Freiburg. So I have a large water association. It's Keyser. I have the Keyser Water Association in my district. So they're pretty established. You guys are, it looks like. And I have been there for most of my career. Started up in Strong. I also grew up in that district. I grew up in Stoneham. So I was kind of fortunate to be able to get back there fairly quickly. Growing up in Stoneham, I was in the woods all the time. That's all there is in Stoneham. So.
Excuse me, Tom, could they use the mic? Can you set that up? Or
Yeah.
Remember how to...
Hello?
Sounds
like it's on.
There.
I'm not sure she need that, but so yeah, like Warden Miller said, we're just gonna kind of open it up to questions when we can go in here, and we have some questions written down as well. See where it goes from there.
So I was given quite a list of questions. A lot of them, I'll say right up front, had to do with a lot of the environmental concerns that all of you folks have. It's primary in a lot of people's minds. I will answer some of those questions as best I can. I will say in our role and in what we do, we are primarily law enforcement. We are not biologists. We're not environmentalists in that regard. We aren't scientists, even though we get exposed to a lot of that stuff, so we have a little bit of background. So I'll try to answer some of it. I have reached out to, our department has a new position. It's a woman named Bethany Atkins, and she was actually called environmental biologist. And so that's kind of her area. I reached out to her. Unfortunately, she's on vacation this week and she's unable to be here. But she's also a great resource. So I intend to follow up with some of these questions with her and kind of get her input on where the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife stands in some of these issues. Because a lot of it's fairly new, right? And a lot of it we're still kind of hashing out and learning and adjusting our management practices to those concerns. So, but there are a lot of law questions and things like that were sent to me that we're going to try to get through. So one of the first ones that was asked is, how do you see your role evolving in the face of accelerating climate impacts on freshwater systems? And how can we prepare collectively for what's coming? Obviously, if you don't have the scientific background, it's a little bit difficult to answer in terms of what kind of impacts we're discussing. I'll say, as far as I'm concerned, as far as Warden Coombs is probably concerned, I'll let him speak for himself, but there probably really won't be any change. It's not up to us to establish the laws. We don't create the regulations, we enforce what is given to us to enforce, and we'll just continue to do that. I guess some of the changes we have seen is we have a little bit more of an emphasis on things like aquatic invasive species, and we put some time into some of that enforcement, and we keep an eye out for that kind of stuff a little bit more, but other than that, we don't have anything on our radar that's really causing grave concern that we're going to be jumping ship and doing things differently. So, so for right now, it's kind of status quo for us. Anything to add to that?
I don't think so. I would say, like, our job, even when I started, which wasn't, again, when Warden Miller started 10, 15 years ago, our job even back then was more focused on, you know, we did hunting in the fall, we did fishing in the spring, we did some boating in the summer, and then we came back in fall. And we had little breaks here and there where we could do our paperwork, did our training. Now it just goes, we're steady all around with the different aspects that meld into our job. And part of that is, like, right now we're still dealing with the boating, which has many different aspects of paddlecraft, the watercraft, the invasive species, and we're still getting ready for fall. So it's not necessarily the environment, but it's a lot more usage on the environment that we're seeing, and I think that's part of it for us. From my vantage point, is it just a lot more usage everywhere, and it's been that way for the last 5-6 years. Is there's just a lot more input to us, which is a good thing. But it's also, there's a balance there, and it's always that balance of that every department, every association, everybody's got to find that balance point too.
So based on the survey conducted last year, one of the greatest concerns we had that you all folks put forward was shoreline erosion and wildlife issues, especially with the loon nest.
Can you move the mic closer?
Yep. Okay. And so what came from that is a question of what are the rules and laws of using a wake boat on main lakes and ponds. So wake boats are a huge area of controversy for us right now. Half the people want them, half the people own them, and then the other half hate them, quite frankly. So it creates a little bit of a conundrum for us. So really the laws right now, they just had a new one come out last year that is very specific. It is, I will tell you right ahead, we told the legislature this, but it is very difficult for us to enforce. And we knew that was going to be an issue because you have to take everything into consideration, what people know, what their intent is. So basically, the law is that they have to be, in order to be going above headway speed, 300 feet from shore, where normal headway speed would be 200 feet from shore. So they have to be out 300 feet from shore, and they have to be in more than 15 feet of water. And that's the part that's near impossible to enforce. How does anybody know how deep they are at any given moment? That's a struggle for a lot of people. So anyway, I'm not saying it's impossible. That law is there. They can't be in shallow areas, up on plane, pulling something around. That law only applies if their ballasts are full. So we have to show that their ballasts are full. Those wake boats are designed to create a wake so that somebody can surf behind them. So what they do is they fill a water ballast, which sits at the back of the boat lower and creates a bigger wake. Very popular on a lot of large lakes and ponds that are in southern areas of the United States or western areas, but they are becoming more popular in Maine as well.
Are there any, is there any, I know it's controversial.
Yeah.
Any discussions or thoughts about it, or are there any lakes that have kind of tried to limit that based on the size of the body of water, not necessarily the distance from shore?
All kinds of discussion.
Could you repeat the question, please?
So, yeah, so the question essentially was, are there any lakes and ponds in Maine that, is there discussion around deciding whether or not a certain lake and pond would be, has to be of a particular size to have a boat like that in it? There has been all kinds of discussion, I'll tell you, it's basically gone nowhere. And I think it really is because it's a lot of back and forth. We had one lake, Warden Coombs could probably speak to it a little bit last year, that tried to make it headway speed on the entire lake for everybody. And the reality is those are federal laws, and towns just don't have the authority to override those federal laws. Now, we may see that change, I don't know. But that's kind of where that's in. There is a lot of discussion on sizes. One of the other, and that leads me into another one of the questions was, in terms of motorboats in general, is there any lake, what size lake and pond you need to have a motorboat, or other lakes and ponds are too small to have motorboats? The reality is no. So that the motor regulations have nothing to do with the size of the pond. So if you see places like Horseshoe Pond over Warden Coombs' way, things like that have horsepower restrictions, that is done through the legislature. The towns or the associations go through their legislator, they get that rule put into place that it's a certain horsepower, but it has nothing to do with the size of the pond. Most lakes and ponds that are smaller kind of almost self-police that because there's just no way to get a bigger boat in there. And that's kind of keeps that from being a bigger issue.
Yeah, I guess I'll say, I don't know when the time frame was, but I think all of your bodies of water are restricted from PWC's, personal watercraft. And there was a time frame quite a few years ago when the state allowed citizens or groups, associations, to petition to restrict bodies of water, specifically for personal watercraft. And it was a set time, and when that time elapsed, it got cut off. And from my understanding, now that that's cut off, in order to get a body of water restricted to personal watercraft or to horsepower restrictions, it now has to go through the legislature. I do have a body of water, Kais Pond over in Sweden. They just went through the legislature to get personal watercraft restriction there. And it was quite a process. They did get it done. It started with your representatives, with your legislators, to get that done. And usually it starts with, this is what we're seeing, this is the complaints, this is the problem we're having, and obviously you build up from there. I don't know of any bodies of water, not in this area especially, that are restricted beyond 10 horsepower. Like I have many bodies of water that are restricted to 10 horsepower, restricted to 6 horsepower, and that was from many years ago that they did that restriction. I don't have any that are restricted to like 50 horsepower or 40 horsepower. I've never seen a body of water in the state of Maine that restricts anything on that level. It's always either usually a small shallow pond that back in the day they restricted it to the 10 horsepower or no motor, and in order to do that nowadays it would be more process. It could be done, but it would be more process. And I don't know that it's ever been done for like a 50 horsepower, 60 horsepower, or anything like that motor.
You register your boat, like my boat is registered with, I think, a 4.5 horse.
Yep.
And I got a little electric motor.
Yep.
Is it illegal to use the electric motor, not the gas motor?
In one of those ponds, is that what you're saying?
In any pond.
Repeat the question.
So he's asking if you don't register. Is that
No,
what you're
I've got my boat registered.
Yes.
And everything. It's just it says on the registration, 4.5 gas motor.
Yeah, so he's saying it's registered. His boat is registered under the big motor on the boat. He also has the electric motor. So as long as it's registered for the biggest motor on it, but the electric motor's the smaller motor, so that's fine. It's just an additional motor. So as long as it's registered, I guess where we come in, where we have problems is a lot of people don't think that the 1 horsepower electric motors, which most of them are 1 horsepower, need to be registered. So a lot of people put them on their canoes, put them on the rowboats, and they don't register. That's a problem. It is still a motor, it is still 1 horsepower, it is still need registered. But the additional, the ones that are on the bow for the motorboats, for the bass fishermen, anything like that, the big motor is what it's registered under, and then that's just an additional.
Alright, so kind of along those lines, we have another question that came in about public boat ramps and launching. So the question was, if there's no public ramp for boat launching, would a person need the permission of the land or shore owner to launch a boat of any kind? Or is this like hunting where one can wander in and wander out as long as there's no signs? So essentially what they're alluding to is that if you're not familiar with the hunting laws, it's essentially the trespass laws in Maine. If it's not posted, you can go on it. A lot of those laws came into place where it was within reason. You know, people didn't typically just stroll across somebody's front yard, just even though they know they could. Anyway, so this kind of would apply in the same regard. But so there is a law. It's dug out somewhere. I didn't go in and find it, but I could find it if I needed to. But basically, Great Ponds in Maine. Is it 10 acres? 5 acres. So anything over 5 acres in Maine. It's public, it's considered public access. So the public has to have a way to access it. And what that does is preventing any one landowner from buying all the land around a lake or a pond and preventing any public access to it. You can't do that in Maine. So what this is alluding to is saying, well, if you have a right to access a lake or a pond and there's no public boat launch, can I go use somebody else's boat launch because I have a right to access? You have a right to access that lake and pond. You don't have a right to launch a boat. It's two different things is what we're talking about. So if you were going to go ahead and just stroll into somebody else's property and use their boat ramp without their permission and they're right there going, what the heck? You can't get them and say, hey, I have a right to do this. You don't. You're on their curtilage, which is basically a legal term to say that you're on where they're domiciled. And you can't be there without their permission. So it's kind of two different things. Is that clear?
Is that the same for fishing? I
Yeah.
mean, I can't go down like on her boat dock without her permission and fish.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is like on foot, just to go ahead and
Yeah,
fish. If her boat dock is not posted. In Maine, the reality is if you have a different way to access that, if her land is not posted, technically, yes, you can stroll down her front yard, across her pier, or her dock, and go ahead and start fishing. Now, most of us kind of common sense know that's kind of, not a nice move. So we don't do it. So hopefully we don't have to have laws in the future that cover that stuff, because it really should be, good. But the reality is you don't have a right to go fish anywhere you want on a pond. All you have is the right to access that pond, and all of these ponds around here have a public point of access. This is really for ponds, lakes or ponds that do not appear to have any kind of public point of access. Where you see this more commonly, if any of you are familiar with Hutchinson Pond, like every piece of land around that lake is completely posted by all the different landowners. So there's really no place to access. But there is a thin strip of property that goes, little footpath that goes right to the pond, and that is a public access point, and that's where you can access that pond. So basically it's just saying that every pond needs to have that point. As long as there is that point, you don't have the right to just stroll across somebody else's property and do what you want to do. So that's not really how that works. Good. Moorings. So we had some questions come up about I know there's a boat over on Christopher that's moored, a pontoon boat. So there are some questions about are random unoccupied moorings allowed on Lake Christopher? So the reality, we've dealt with this in our bigger lakes and ponds quite a bit. You can randomly moor boats offshore as long as they are within 200 feet of shore. So within 200 feet of shore is that equid speed zone, that's our safety zone. So as long as they are mooring their boat within 200 feet of shore and they're not trespassing to get down to their boat, you can have random people mooring boats. And you will get that with people who don't own property on a lake but want to have their boat there. They don't have another place to put it, they will moor it offshore. They can legally do that. So, any questions on that further?
Do they then have to pay the town some sort of mooring fee?
She was asking about mooring fees. No, they do not have to pay any mooring fee. The lake is public, so that belongs to the people of the state, not of this town specifically. So they can be there.
I will say that this is in debate all over the state right now, especially down in Lake Sebago, because there's thousands of them, and they're actually renting them out to people, putting houseboats on them. Like, it's a problem. So they're trying to figure out where the legality is it, because between the shoreline and 200 feet is that public water safety zone. So you can't drive a boat through there. Skiing is where people put their boats and their docks and all that. But it is still the state's water. It's where people can moor. So that's where the state says you can moor boats. I think there may be some places that have like port harbor people. I think like down in Naples, they may have a harbor master that goes down there. They may do some sort of town, municipality. I don't know if they do actually mooring fees. I don't know how they do it. If there was some sort of a town, I guess it would be under the same, whoever does your docks and your, if the municipality had something set up that way, I don't know that they could do it as a fee, but they could do some sort of, it would be very hard. It would be the same as the floating docks, where probably would just be able to restrict, when they could be out, when they couldn't be out, stuff like that. I don't know if they could restrict it more than that. I don't think they could do fees on it.
Who's responsible for maintaining those types of moorings if it's not a harbor master?
The owner.
And is the owner allowed to install a mooring like that without a permit?
Yes.
What's the difference between doing that and having a houseboat, which has recently become not legal to do?
The houseboat is moored on the mooring.
So are these,
What is?
like that specific boat that we're talking about? On that boat?
Oh, I get what you're saying. So what's the difference between the houseboat and the
Yeah, it's the same
pontoon boat?
process.
Yep. Where is the houseboat not legal? What do you mean?
Aren't houseboats now illegal in main waterways?
Not, well, I don't know how they're dealing with down there. They may be, I think if they're made as a boat, so my understanding the way they're doing it now is if they're manufactured as a watercraft houseboat, and so they're a boat, they can be. And I don't know how the municipalities are doing it or how they're doing it, but I know they do have houseboats down in Sebago now that they're trying to deal with, so,
I thought they passed a law
yeah.
saying,
And the difference, my understanding is where they're trying to separate them is you have different, like you live on a houseboat, you have a bathroom on a houseboat, you have water on a houseboat. So they're trying to, it's always been defined as a boat because you can define a boat as manufactured as a watercraft. And a houseboat is, but I think they're trying to split that, and maybe they have already. I rarely see a houseboat, so I don't have to deal with it as much as the guys
I
do.
think it's more in this area, or something Moose Lake and other places.
Yeah,
They take a pontoon boat,
and they make
snap
it,
something onto it.
yes.
And the person who's doing that,
So those we have, because we have a lot of times people come to us and be like, this is my homemade houseboat. And we want to put a motor on it, we want to register it, we want a VIN number for it. So they have to come to us for the VIN number, the whole number. We will not give them whole numbers, we will not allow them to register, and we will not give those if they're not manufactured or approved or inspected by a motorboat, boat company now, which is a new thing. So it used to be, if we could go there and be like, it floats, we can give you a VIN number, we would have to give them a haul number for it. We now have been allowed to be like, we can't tell you if that's a boat or not. We're not boat manufacturers. You have to take it to a boat manufacturer and say, it won't tip over when the wave comes. Because the point of gravity, the center of gravity is low enough, the way they have to make boats. I can't tell that. I'm not a boat manufacturer. So it's kind of taken that off us because I can't do that.
So let's see, I'm just trying to sift through these as we kind of answer them as we go. So there was a concern that how can we be better allies in preventing overfishing or illegal dumping, and what should we do if we observe concerning behavior?
I'll say that overfishing really hasn't been a thing that I've noticed around here. I spoke to the biologist about this briefly the other day as well. And if anything, they actually get a little bit frustrated in this day and age because they manage our fish populations with the expectation that it's called a put and take, that they'll put fish in, people take fish out. Well, nobody takes fish out anymore. A lot of people are doing it recreationally, they're throwing them back, and it actually is creating more fish population, which isn't necessarily a bad thing in and of itself, but if you do have an increase in population, what you get is a decrease in the size and quality of the fish often. They reach a point where it's not as healthy. It's kind of like deer. If there's too many, they get smaller and they're not as healthy. So I would say overfishing isn't something we typically see around here. If anything, maybe some of our brooks and streams during the spring when they stock, you might get somebody over limit doing that kind of a thing, but it's not typical in our lakes and ponds that I'm aware of or that I've ever really run into. In terms of illegal dumping, that is always a concern no matter where we go. Particularly we see like ice fishermen in the wintertime, if they get bait, they bring bait in, they dump it in the hole when they're done, which a lot of people don't do anymore because they know it's questionable. It's nothing that I've seen or run into. Every once in a while I'll get a whisper of somebody. I think the biggest concern, and I'm not sure whoever asked this question, if they had a particular species in mind or what they were thinking of, but we have had rumors of people putting pike in different places, and that's always a concern because, as you know, once northern pike get into a waterway, they can put a hurt on a lot of the other population of different species. That's something that I think I talked to the biologist again the other day, and he said that maybe a few years back, a long time back now, they had a report of a pike in North Pond, but they haven't had their hands on a pike since that's come out of North Pond. So I think that's kind of a rumor at this point. So in terms of if you do see illegal dumping, I mean, what it may look like somebody, putting a bucket of something into the water. If you have any concerns like that, go ahead and give us a call. It's even if you're not really sure what you're seeing, it's good for us to know, and it's something we can follow up on. So I would recommend either way you give us a call. But if you hear rumors, that's often how things get started is rumors. And again, don't hesitate to call us and see what we can do about it. But as far as I know right now, it's not a major concern or major issue that we've had. But it is something that we constantly monitor wherever we have any kind of a fishery. So, is that good? See, what policies, state, local, or federal, do we feel most urgently need support to protect freshwater ecosystems like ours, and how can we advocate for those? That was a question that kind of repeated through a little bit, and I understand a very valid concern of a lot of people right now. What should we support? What shouldn't we support? And I actually am going to defer that one a little bit to our environmental biologist because she will have a much better understanding of what the greatest areas of concern are. I simply approach things from an enforcement standpoint. And again, I will be following up with her. I think, Cheryl, are you the best point of contact if I need to disperse? Okay, so when I get back with her, I will put together an email that answers some of those questions for you folks, and she can disperse it for me and you folks. So it's not very helpful right now, but we are working on it. So one thing we did want to touch on is there were some questions about what can we do more as a community and as stewards of your guys' environment that you have here. And I don't know if you've looked in it, maybe you have, I'm sure you have at one point, but a lot of other places do have the aquatic invasive species courtesy inspectors. And I'm actually surprised that we don't up here, and just in terms of that we do have aquatic invasive species in some of these lakes and ponds. And I have seen that be successful in other areas. I know there have been cases where people have been able to pick what was confirmed later to be milfoil off people's boat trailers or bunkers before they went into a pond. And that's essentially a safe. Because once that little piece of milfoil or whatever gets in there, as you know, it's very difficult and very expensive to eradicate. If it ever really happens at all, you can kind of mitigate it. So that's one area that I would encourage you folks to consider or look into, is having maybe at some of your lakes and ponds, especially at like a launch like the Hub where it's incredibly busy. Those milfoil inspectors, again, it's a courtesy thing. People don't have to comply, but most people generally do. I think most people that come to the state really do want the best for it.
So Sarah, we do have, the Community Lakes Association provides invasive plant patrols,
Mhm.
and we typically do 2 or 3 each year.
And we go out on the lakes with folks and we try to identify invasives. So
You can check our website if you are a lake rep or you know people on your lake that would like to do an invasive plant control, you can contact CLA and we will come out and do a educational plant control with you.
Great, thank you. So for those folks who didn't hear, she was just informing me about the invasive plant patrol that you folks do have on some of your lakes and ponds and how that's been helpful.
What's the best way to clean your boat off? Say like you've been in where that milfoil is. What's the best way to clean your boat off? Let it dry in the sun, bleach it,
Yep, so his question is, what's the best way to clean your boat off if you know you've been in one of those areas, like, you know, Little Milfoil Cove over there, and Brent Pond, that kind of thing. So essentially what we go by the mantra of clean, drain, dry. Clean, usually rinsing it off if you know the boat is going to be out of the water and drying completely for a period of time, rinsing it off is pretty effective in and of itself. In other states, they do require that you use something stronger like bleach. They actually have boat wash stations at their places, and once you come out of the lake, you're required, before you even go in, and then when you come out, you have to wash it down with bleach. So you can use a bleach mixture if you want to, if you're not really sure when you're going to be back in, but once your boat comes out of the water, the most effective thing that you can do is let everything dry completely, and that's actually more difficult. If anybody who owns a boat knows how difficult that can actually be. It does take some time. But yes, drying the boat is probably one of the most effective ways to eradicate any of that.
Yeah, I would say the sun, putting it in the sun is going to be pretty good. In your, like you talked about the electric motor, like you get in the weeds, it's all going to be in the props. Some of the guys, like I do a lot of bass tournaments on Keyser, they take those props right off when they get home and take everything out because they're in a lot of the weeds. And we don't have any invasives in Keyser, any milfoil in Keyser anyway, but they still take it off because that's just what they do for everyone. And they pressure wash them down, their boats down usually. And I would say any kind of, if you have a boat that has like the bunks, that the trailer has bunks instead of the wheels, that's going to take the longest to dry out, and it's also going to be from all the trailers that I've looked at, because I look at a lot of trailers, that's usually where the weeds get caught, and it's impossible to get them off. So that's really what needs to dry out, is you need to get those out, and that's where like keeping a ramp kind of clear, or not power loading, loading, hand loading, helps keep those from getting pinched underneath and get broken up when you're getting it loaded. But yeah, just making sure it gets dried out and washed off is the best way to do it. And it's not all, every year it seems like there's a new thing we're looking out for. It's not all plants anymore. It's the spiny water fleas, there's a snail, there's other stuff like that are floating around now that we gotta look out for.
Sure, thank you. So one of the questions we had involved jet skis. What defines a jet ski? It's kind of a three-part question. What defines a jet ski, and what should be done with one as seen as in our lakes and ponds? So I actually pulled up the definition of a personal watercraft because it is a little bit complicated. So I'll read that for you here. So a personal watercraft, this is how our department defines it. And we say personal watercraft because jet ski is actually technically a brand. So what a jet ski is, you all folks have it in your head what a jet ski is. It's really just a brand by Ski-Doo. So this extends to personal watercraft. So when you see the restrictions, it's considered a personal watercraft. So it's a PWC restriction is what we're really talking about. So personal watercraft means any motorized watercraft that is 14 feet or less in hull length that's manufactured, has its primary source of propulsion an inboard motor powering a jet pump, and is capable of carrying one or more persons in a sitting, standing, or kneeling position. Personal watercraft also includes motorized watercraft whose operation is controlled by a water skier. I'm not really actually sure what that is, but there's a lot of weird new stuff coming out, so I think we're trying to stay ahead of it. Personal watercraft does not include a motorized watercraft that does not have a horsepower rating of greater than 15 horsepower and does not generate an unreasonable amount of noise. don't ask me what unreasonable it is, because it's not very specific. But that's how we define what we colloquially call a jet ski.
But,
Would that include the jet boats?
so if they're under 14 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the 15 horse. if it's over
So,
15.
and that's it's not going to be very well known.
Yeah.
So if you see one of the little Sea-Doo boats
Yeah.
that are short,
Yep.
they make Sea-Doo boats that are like 15 footers,
Mhm.
and they're good to go. They're jet drive, but they're over 14 feet,
Yeah.
and they usually fit like 5 or 6 people in it.
Yeah, because I've seen them been on the Androscoggin, and people like come flying up on those things.
Yeah,
and it's
those
like,
little 2-person,
Yep, tiny
13-foot Sea-Doo boats.
yeah,
People won't assume those are personal watercrafts.
Yeah.
And because they don't look like personal watercraft, because they're a boat. But they do fit our definition, and I think that's why they put them in, because they're jet drive, they're small, they're pretty much the same thing. So yeah, if you do see one, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what ends up on some of these lakes, because people aren't gonna think.
yeah. There's a few on Songo a few months back. and
Yeah. Yeah, well, and Songo can have jet skis, so.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if those end up on some of these bodies of water. You can let us know. We'll get there. We'll get them off at least, and we'll educate them. If not anything else. Yes.
It's a hydrofoil, it's like a surfboard, and it comes up out of the water a few feet, and you know,
Yeah.
just come out like the last like 3 or 4 years, that probably would fall under that.
Yeah. So there's a couple of the hydrofoil stuff. One of them you just pull behind the boat. We actually saw one the other day. And I think the one that you pull behind the boat still has a lower fin, but the boat's what pulls you up, and then you can just kind of bounce like that. There's one that has a jet drive. The jet drive one that actually propels yourself to get up
Correct.
would fall under that,
Right.
because it's a jet drive. It's one person.
Yeah.
It would have to be registered, and it would fall under PWC. You'd have to wear the correct life jacket, and wouldn't be allowed on most of these ponds. The ones that aren't, they're pretty much just a wakeboard with a fin. So the actual boat pulls you, I believe. I've seen them a couple times, but I'm not sure.
I'm in the boat business, I'm familiar with the one you're talking about, you get pulled behind the boat.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's allowed.
Yeah, it doesn't have a jet drive, right? On it?
Right, no, you're being
Yes.
pulled, yeah.
Yeah, so that one's allowed because there's no propulsion to it. But there is one that actually has its own propulsion system, and that would be a PWC definition.
Those are, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but those are very quiet.
Very quiet.
Yeah.
Very quiet. I was on a pond a couple of years ago, and it was similar to this. It was actually, it looked like more of a boogie board.
Yeah.
But when I looked at it, they were flying around the lake, and I was like, what are they doing? And so when they slowed down, I went over, and it was a jet drive boogie board. Pretty much all I can describe it as, and I was like, wow.
Go away.
The personal watercraft, noise related, or just a combination of that?
I wouldn't say noise. I think jet ski, personal watercraft are they're fun toys. So people that use them usually are having fun with them. That's usually what people have complaints on. They're fast, so they can be dangerous, and they're only getting faster. Anything ATVs, snowmobiles, jet skis, even boats. They're just, manufacturers just try to make them faster every year. So they're always, I think those are our complaints, are the speed.
So a lot of times their band is really like operator.
Yes, yeah, absolutely operator. Yeah. You can, jet skis are fun. If you I used to have a jet ski, the Warden Service had a couple, and I had one for Keyser, because Keyser allows them, and it's a very effective tool to work off.
Right.
And if you want to go out on a jet ski just like a snowmobile, they are awesome. But if you put them in the wrong hands, they're deadly. Just like any kind of boat, any kind of car, any kind of, and
I think that there is one that I was kind of on South Pond that has like the, it's like a surfboard with the the jet drag on it again.
Yeah, so she was
Why?
saying over on South Pond, that potentially one of those hydrofoils essentially. Is it getting towed by a boat or is it just independent? So, yeah, so that technically would fall under the PWC thing, technically would not be allowed. So if I were to see it, and again, like, we don't typically get complaints on that stuff, because A, most people are like, what the heck is that? And
The
then,
first time I saw it, I was
yes,
like,
and then B, they don't make noise, right? So they're not creating a wake, they're not making noise, it doesn't generally make people angry. So we don't generally get complaints on them. But technically, they can't have it, so that is a discussion I could have with that person, but, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. They're getting more and more common, they're quite expensive,
I've
but,
only seen one, but
yeah, yeah.
The price
So-
are coming down on.
Yes, like you said, the prices are coming down on them, because that's generally the goal, is to get them into more people's hands, so it's something you'll probably start seeing more and more.
And we'd also have to look, like some of these paddle boards that have them, like they have the ones with just like the electric motors in them, and the paddle ones, which I think that's why they have, so it's a 15 horsepower restriction. So if they're only 15 horsepower, they still could have them. So,
yeah, I haven't seen this close up. So
yeah, I don't know either. So they try to make that line, so like the little fishing kayaks that have the electric 1 horse motor aren't restricted from these ponds, because that's not the intent.
So along kind of with that question of what is a jet ski, what defines a jet ski is what should you do, and what should be done if you see one. By all means, give us a call. Usually when there's one of my lakes and ponds around here, I get about 40 calls, so I definitely know about it. Generally, I think in almost every single case, I've gone over and found out whoever the operator was. He got yelled at so many times in 20 minutes that he got his butt off the lake and he never came back. So it seems to me like you folks do a great job policing that yourselves. But definitely, you may get somebody who's just like, whatever, I'm going to do what I want to do, or I don't know any better, and they continue to go, I mean, by all means, either way, call me, and I'll get over there and try to figure out who it is and educate.
Do you recommend taking cell phone, like, video of, not just that, but like violations in general?
So the question was, do you recommend taking cell phone videos of violations in general? As long as that video is something that you're willing to share with me, absolutely. I think that's very effective and very helpful. Sometimes I'm able to look at that video and be like, well, there's not actually a violation there, unfortunately, and this is why. Or B, I can use that, if I do summon somebody, I can use that for prosecution purposes, and it is very helpful when you can be like, look, here's the wake, there's the canoe, it just tipped over, these people are in the water, this is the operator, and then I don't have to argue about some of those details with whoever it is. And it's actually a very effective tool when you're interviewing somebody to be able to show them the video and be like, hey, is that you? And they're like, no, yeah. So yes, if you have an opportunity, if you got somebody who's operating crazy or anything like that, and it's something that you want to report, taking a video I think is extremely helpful for us. So. Good question, thank you. Okay, so another part to that question was also concerning seeing a jet skier and another speedboat were not operating safely, frequently racing each other while there were many other people using the pond on boats, kayaks, and paddleboards. Should the game warden be contacted in these situations? And I would say understanding that operating safely can be actually a very subjective kind of thing. One person's definition of safe is different than another person's. But if you feel that there is something unsafe going on, and it's especially if it's a continuing problem, by all means give us a call. And we may or may not be able to get over there right away to do something about it, but if we can follow up with people or something like that, then that's definitely something we can do. I will say, like Warden Coombs was saying, jet skis in particular, which you folks, they're not allowed in your lakes and ponds, so it's not as big an issue, because they can't be there anyway. But if they get out in a lake and pond and they're doing circles and jumping wakes, that makes a lot of people upset, right? But the reality is that's why they get the things. They can do all that stuff, which is why you don't have them on your lakes and ponds, because you don't want to hear. So that's fine. So there are some laws that we have in place. We have operating recklessly, operating to endanger. Those have a pretty high threshold of what that means. We do have an imprudent speed statute where we can charge somebody based on their behavior. People, as some of you folks know, are responsible for their wake. So if they go flying by a canoe and technically everything's legal except their wake washes over the canoe and sinks the canoe, they do have a level of responsibility in that. So that is something we've investigated before, we've looked into before. So it's not an easy black and white thing to say what's safe, what's unsafe, but I think most of you folks generally, common sense wise, know when you see something if it's unsafe. And if you see that, by all means, give us a call, that's fine. And we'll do what we can. We're stretched pretty thin, as you folks know. I'll put it out there. I've had some complaints over on Twitchell, and every time I get a call on it or a complaint, I can't get over there. I'm just way far away or trying to do other things. But it's something that we will, if nothing else, keep in the back of mind and continue to work in the future to try to catch up with something, especially if it's an ongoing type of issue. We're starting to ramble now. Do you have anything to add? Okay. So another question here about shifting gears a little bit. The dead moose over in Alice Pond. We got about 90 calls on that one too. What should be done if we see dead wildlife in our lakes and ponds? Great question. It happens quite often. A lot of times it's natural causes. Or something gets hit by a vehicle or something like that, winds up in a lake and pond, ends up being deceased. It's nothing that we generally deal with. In the case of the moose over in Alice Pond, there's plenty of places on the pond that don't have a lot of camps. And this moose happened to beach up in the area where all the camps were. So nobody wants to see that, I get it. So we were able to go out there, and we actually did just tow it off. And we essentially will just tow it off to a less populated area. That is kind of a natural thing, and we don't have any way to move that animal off the lake. That's not really, we don't typically go around removing dead animals from places, but that's part of nature, and we just leave that essentially for the eagles and the fish, and they take care of it actually pretty quick. If you do have a way to, those animals, they do tend to bloat when they drown. In particular, if you have a way to sink it, that's probably the best thing that we can do. And we'll do that sometimes too. We'll literally just sink it. And people don't want to think about that species in their lakes and ponds. I get it, but it actually happens probably a lot more than people are aware. And it's like I said, it's part of nature, and it gives the animals something else to munch on. So, any other questions on that? All right. I think that's kind of the bulk of, without getting into some of the other specific ones, I'm just going to go through this real quick, just bear with me. Make sure I kind of covered most of the law stuff in particular. I did see this one said, are you seeing any changes in wildlife behavior or populations that we should be concerned about as indicators of ecosystem stress? I specifically asked one of our fisheries biologists about this. What do our lakes and ponds look like? Are we seeing any major changes? And as far as he was concerned, he's like, he said the water column's still pretty dang cold, is what he said. So he hasn't seen anything immediate. I guess the only big change, and I guess we could go back and forth about whether it's an environmental change and climate change thing, or if it's just nature, evolving as nature evolves. Is, for those of you who aren't familiar, most people are, is the whitefish population in South Pond, and the regulations that we've changed around that. And it doesn't affect probably a whole lot of you folks here in the summertime, because it really is more of a winter and a spring type fishery. But we've changed some of our smelting regulations on South Pond, if you haven't heard, to help try to boost, in an attempt to try to boost the whitefish population. They're fairly confident that if they can knock down the smelt population a little bit, that it will help boost the whitefish. Basically the smelts, the adult smelts, eat the whitefish fry. And the whitefish are a very slow-growing, unique species. They are native to Maine. They're native to South Pond. It's one of the few species that are. And South Pond is the only place, as far as I know, in southern Maine that has a native whitefish population. And it is a unique strand in Maine. So even the whitefish that you see up in the Allagash, in different areas like that, are like an Acadian strain, and this is, I guess, what's called a Mississippi strain. So it's, in terms of biodiversity, it's something that they very much want to protect and see grow. So that's probably the biggest, like, ecological change, I guess you would say, that we've had kind of in this area, is just a re-emphasis on trying to protect that species and bolster that species population a little bit. So what we may see, because if we take enough smelts, if that is effective, we may see a bit of a decrease in the salmon population in South Pond, which is what, kind of got some people upset. But again, we don't know 100% sure. They're pretty confident that this works because they've done it in other areas and had some good success with it. But it's nature, right? There's no guarantees, but this is what we're going to try to do. So we do have those changes. So if you see people in the spring, if you are here in the spring, you see people smelting in South Pond, you're like, that brook is closed. We open the whole thing. So we actually want people to take some of the smelts out of there. It's still, right now, closed to commercial harvest. We may see that change. They're still talking about that.
I'll speak a little bit to the commercial harvest because I think that's coming. And so any of you that live on South Pond in the winter, I think we're going to see some, and just give you a heads up, I guess, because it could be alarming when you see it in the middle of the night. So the commercial guys that smelt, they will be smelting at night in the winter. They put out nets through the ice in the winter. I think the proposed what the biologists are proposing right now is that they're going to do set nights where the biologists are going to go out with the commercial guys. They're going to set their nets and they're going to do these set nights with them to see what the smelts, what they're getting out for smelts. So it wouldn't be a all winter long like most of these lakes and ponds are that the commercial guys are on. But it is very weird to see them out if you've never seen them. Like they cut 4-foot holes in the ice with their nets down through. They do mark them. They mark them with they have to mark them with pine boughs or tape. But they'll be out there with their ATVs or trucks, whatever it is that they'll be out there with. And I think their plan as of now is only they're going to do it just a few of the commercial guys that can do like a lottery for whoever puts in. And whoever gets chosen, they'll bring them out to set their nets, to tend their nets. And it is, like I said, I'm pretty mixed about it because it will, if they're successful, it will bring the salmon population down and people are just starting to get excited about the salmon population. But it is if they are successful, like they're saying, South Pond will be pretty much the only lake in the state that has this strain of whitefish population. So that'll be unique. And if that's the case, that's awesome. That'll be unique for the pond. So there will be more to come on that. They're still hashing all that out. The biggest thing, like Warren Miller was saying, is the spring smelts. If you see them in the spring now, you'll see them all along the brook on the beach, and of course we didn't see it this spring because the smelts didn't really run, but in theory this next spring. Any questions on that?
How many agencies would be allowed to do it?
So there's how many smelters?
Yeah.
Yeah, the question was how many smelters would be allowed to do it. They're still hashing that out. They don't really know because they don't. I think they're going to go by year. My guess is they'll do like half a dozen, and they'll let them do it and see what the take is for smelts and see if it's what they are. See if it gets to the threshold of what they want. So typically a commercial smelter, if they're set through the ice, they're allowed to take 8 quarts of smelts, which is more than what you're allowed to in the spring through a net. So you're allowed to take 8 quarts of smelts a night, and they sell it to the ice fishermen for fishing. They're proposing to do just a few so that they can regulate who they are, they can watch them, but because they want the smelt population, they want to get the smelt population down fast, they're proposing to allow them to take whatever they can take in that night. So allow them to do I think they're going to restrict how many nets. They're talking about just allowing them to do 2-3 nets instead of just, usually they do 5-6 nets in a pond. Do 2-3 nets, but whatever they get in that net, they can keep for the night. So if they get a good spot and they set the net and they get, 8 quarts of smelts, okay, you got your 8 quarts of smelts. If they get 12 quarts of smelts, that's what you get tonight, and we'll see again the next time we do it. I don't know if they've ever done this before, so they're still trying to hash out exactly how they can do it. and what the best way to do it to be successful.
We go out in the spring and get our smell. How many pots are we allowed now?
Two.
Two?
Two.
See, when I was younger, it used to be a gallon.
Yeah, it used to be 4. They changed it about 15 years ago, something like that.
Why can't they put that up? So,
One step at a time.
okay.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's mostly,
Get 'em all.
oh, we got
One more question.
one more question.
I have a question around the, I guess it's related to the dumping issue. Fireworks are not part of nature. Is there any recourse besides changing the state law about people polluting the lakes with fireworks?
Like the debris, if they put fireworks
Well,
out
they
there.
certainly shoot off a lot of them.
Yeah, that would probably fall under a littering clause. So it would certainly be considered littering if you left. I would have to look it up if there's anything specific to fireworks in the littering clause, which is actually the conservation law. It's a different chapter than what we usually work with, so it doesn't fall under our jurisdiction, but it's something that can be addressed from that. So what I can do is I can look into that further, and if I come up with anything further, I can include that in answers with Cheryl. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, actually, a quick question. You mentioned harbor master, all right? Does that come out of the game warden budget, or is it local law?
So if there's any kind of a harbor master on any kind of a lake or pond, that is strictly up to either the town or a lake associate. I think it's usually the town municipal.
Yeah, or like on Long Lake, it's the sheriff. It's the sheriff's deputy.
So the sheriff's deputy. So it's something that's contracted out. It definitely doesn't come out of our budget. So even we have deputy game wardens that work on particular lakes and ponds down in southern Maine that are extremely busy, and they actually have a contract for that, where they contract them for extra time, and that's the way they have to do that. We just don't have the personnel to have a person on every single lake and pond all summer long. It just doesn't work. So, but yeah, so that would have to be something you could go through possibly the municipality or the sheriff's department and see if that's something that can be arranged if you were interested in something like that. And then essentially that would give some of them have what's civil authority, so they can address different, like if there's ordinances, like an ordinance on a lake or a pond, we really actually can't do much with because it doesn't fall under state law, but a sheriff's deputy, a civil sheriff's deputy, or a harbor master, that kind of can handle those ordinance complaints. So it looks like we might be running a little bit low on time, so I'm going to give it back over to Cheryl. But if you folks come up with other questions like you normally may, we unfortunately will have to boogie out because we've got a lot of other stuff going on today. But if you can get those questions, unfortunately, to Cheryl, I'm going to volunteer you, and I will try to get back to you all in an email as best I can, okay? Thank you for having me.
Next on the agenda is election of officers. So president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. Any nominations from the floor? Anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to reelect all of them.
Okay, anybody want a second? Tom will second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you. So our next speaker is Susan Gallo. She's the Executive Director of Maine Lakes since November of 2018. She has 20 years of experience delivering education and outreach programs, including management of statewide Maine Loon projects, fish lead-free projects, and the Maine amphibian monitoring program at Maine Audubon. Her experience and passion for lake conservation, program management, fundraising, and successful collaboration with conservation partners and the public make her a strong leader for her organizations. So let's give Susan a round of applause for volunteering to do a presentation for us.
All right, thank you, everybody. Thanks so much for being here on this beautiful day. So I'm going to talk about yard practices mostly. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what Maine Lakes is and what we do, and then I'll focus really on practices that all of you can do on your property. There's a whole bunch. I'm going to give you enough things that there is something that I give you that you can do. And so what I've read is that if you say something out loud, that you're like 1,000 more times likely to actually follow through. So at the end of this, I hope you'll all see something that you can do, and we're going to do a little pledge at the end. That maybe if there's something you can do, if you could just say it out loud, we'll do that at the end. But first, I'll show you that there's things you can do. So thank you so much for having me. First slide, next slide, or do I have a clicker or you have? Oh, you want me to use it?
Either way. That's down, that's up.
Okay, oh geez.
If you want me to do that, I'll do it.
Okay, yeah, so Maine Lakes is a statewide organization. We work across the state on lots of different programs, but, sorry, the print's so small. But our mission is to protect and preserve the value of Maine's lakes for all who use them. And we focus on action, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. We do work very closely with Lake Stewards of Maine. You're probably familiar, you have some Lake Stewards of Maine literature here. They do the invasive plant patrols, they do the water quality monitoring, and we love Lake Stewards of Maine, but we are not them, and they are not us. So we always field questions about the difference. But so we focus on actions for Maine's Lakes. I did put renew your Maine Lakes membership here because we hope that Community Lakes Association will continue to be a member, but you're not currently. So I have to. I'll just.
our membership after our annual meeting.
Oh, you do. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. So we are supported by members. We have Lake Association members, and then we have individual members. So we appreciate all of our members very much. Oh, so geez. So one of the things we protect is lake values. And so just really quickly, this is we invested in a study of the economic values of lakes. It's not complete yet, but it's on our website. Lakes.me is our website. You might go to mainelakes.org, which would be a really smart thing for us to have as our website, but that belongs to Lakes Environmental Association. So you can go to mainelakes.org. They have great stuff over there, but we're lakes.me. And if you go to lakes.me/economics, you'll see a summary of this economics work that was done. But basically, Maine Lakes bring a value of $14 billion annually to our state and our state's economy. And then in terms of direct expenditures, it's over $3 billion each year. And this, we left some things out. We weren't able to cover everything, but we covered some major things: lakefront property, summer camps, lake recreation, and drinking water consumption. So this is all on our website, and we actually have a handout. It's a 2-page handout, or front and back. Really good for your town councilors, select people, legislators. Anything you can do to get this study in the hands of decision makers is a great thing to do. So just our mission and pictures, we just want people and animals and wildlife to be enjoying lakes, as I'm sure all of you do. Oh geez, I am not good with this. Oh jeez. Just close your eyes. I'm giving it all away and I'm having a terrible time. I'm going to hand it to you. I'm handing it back. That one's too hard. Okay. Okay. All right, next slide. So next slide was our... It's not just me. Uh-oh. Okay, so we did this one. Next slide. That's okay. Okay, I'm glad it's not me.
Yeah, it's just, my computer this is old and slow. Just like
Okay.
Is that right thing?
One back one if you can. If not, we'll. Okay, so how do we do it? How do we do what we do? And this is just really quickly, we just engage with people. So all of our programming is around people. So we train people, we help people, we support lake associations, and these are all the kinds of things they do. But I just want to mention two things briefly. Next slide. We do a lot of advocacy, so Tim and Sarah were talking about some of the new laws. If you want to be involved with making, changing policy, these are sort of, septics, water quality, boat wakes, boater education. We got a mandatory boater education class passed a couple years ago. Unfortunately, it's for young people. And most of the violations are from old people. So we have some ways to go, but at least it's a start. So at least our young people are starting out on our lakes having to take a mandatory boater education class. And the young, I'm dividing young as if, I think it's if you're born after the year 2000. So, we're slowly, as time goes by, it's going to eventually include everybody. But with the wake boats, that wake boat rule that Sarah and Tim mentioned, that is something that was passed recently. We were really involved with that. The floating structure bill, which you brought up, that was a big effort of ours this past year. We are always open to ideas. What do people want to see in terms of policy? But I think these are all things that interest your association. So we do have a legislative alert that goes out we do a few of them throughout the legislative session. lakes.me/contact, you can sign up for that, or if you sign up on our paper form that went around. So I really encourage folks to get involved in advocacy. Just really quickly, all the lake bills that happened last session, we had 160 people speak up or submit testimony, and while that's great, that's a fraction. That's just a fraction of what of the people. Like that's if all of you had written, that would be half of that group. Like we have way more active, interested lake people than 160. So we want to have 10 times that amount speaking up for lake bills, because that's how we're going to get attention on lake issues, lake bills, lake funding. None of that will happen if it's just 160 people speaking up. So that's one of the things you can agree to do. Okay, next slide. And it's kind of linked to the lake advocacy, is that we have a new lake protection coalition, and that is these 6 organizations over there. We all got together and said we need to do more, we need to be more organized, and we need to bring in all of our lake associations in the state and come together to form this lake protection coalition. So this QR code is, we don't have a website yet, but there is a form, and I can get the website, I can get the form to Cheryl, maybe she can put it in the next newsletter. But this QR code brings you to a form to sign up to learn more about the coalition. But the goal of the coalition, we have very grand plans, but it includes a sort of a dream, which is permanent, sustainable, long-term funding for lake conservation. So that would include fully funding CBI programs, fully funding all the training and things you need to be IPP, invasive plant patrollers or water quality monitors. It would include lots of more invasive work on behalf of the state. It would include more enforcement of all the laws we have that are in place, but the Port Warden Service is so overworked they don't have the enforcement capacity. So, there's another thing you can do is join the Lake Protection Coalition, either as an association or as individuals. All right, next slide. So I don't have to tell you how our lakes are at risk. I'm going to keep going. The bulk of what I'm going to finish talking about today is, next slide, is just a quick, again, you probably already know all this, so I'll go really fast. I'm going to talk about phosphorus pollution, and then we're going to jump into the things that you all can do. So an undeveloped, this is my schematic of an undeveloped watershed. So hopefully people in the back, it's not too hard to see, but undeveloped watershed, lots of trees, lots of shrubs. The ground, this is really important, the ground is kind of lumpy, has divots in it. If you've ever walked, you've walked, I'm sure, on undeveloped parts of your property. It might be squishy. It's definitely not flat. And so phosphorus, which is attached to sediments and sand, kind of rests in those low points. And a little, when it rains, a lot of the water gets absorbed into the ground and a little bit flows over, and you get a little bit of phosphorus in your water. And that feeds a little bit of algae, and every lake has algae, every lake should have algae. Algae is an important part of a lake ecosystem. Next slide. Then what happens is when you develop a watershed, we all tend to we want to flatten the property. We get 5 to 10 more times more overland flow of water, so water in, sediment, sand, phosphorus goes into the lake. Much less is absorbed. You have impervious surfaces like roads, driveways that cut this amount way down, and then you get a lot more phosphorus in the water. You get a lot more algae growing. So that's my 1 minute non-point source pollution slide. Okay, explanation. Next slide. So this is just the illustration of this. And I don't know, do you want to turn the lights on? That might help the oh, there we go. So this is just an illustration. This is that lumpy, sort of uneven terrain that is undeveloped, and then on the right is what happens when we move on. When we move anywhere, that's what we do, and that's the impact is this phosphorus that increases into the lake. So next slide. And then what we don't want to see, of course, is an algal bloom. So that's when you get excess phosphorus, the algae grows out of control, and then you have this kind of situation, which is, unpleasant, doesn't smell good, it's not safe to swim in. We have harmful algal blooms in Maine, which the algae actually emits toxins that are harmful. We haven't had any, there's a big debate about the long-term health impacts, but in other states, in warmer states, there have been documented cases of dogs and pets dying from being exposed to this. That hasn't happened in Maine yet, but as our climate gets warmer, as our water temperature warm, it's just a greater and greater risk. So next slide. So I know, because I read your newsletter, you have an effective LakeSmart program, and you have LakeSmart evaluators. Are any lake people who participate in LakeSmart here today? Hey, all right, a few of you, great. Participating in LakeSmart is one of the best things you can do as a property owner, because you'll learn so much about your property and the simple things you can do. So I'm going to go over some of the results that might come out of a LakeSmart evaluation, but I just really encourage you all to do that. And I didn't really say this, but I replaced Andrea Stevens. She was supposed to be your speaker today. She's our LakeSmart program director. So hopefully you can have her back sometime to speak, but I'm here to, I'm replacing her, but and I do know a lot about LakeSmart, but she knows even more. So she is the go-to person. But just quickly, LakeSmart will help you identify problem areas on your property. Where is that phosphorus that was represented in the little pink balls in my previous slide? How is that phosphorus getting into your lake? And then how and where? And it's all a little bit of detective work, because you're looking for erosion. Where is the rainwater washing soil into your lake? That's the big goal of LakeSmart. And when I started at Maine Lakes, I was like, wait, our whole job is keeping sediment out of lakes. That's all that it's about. And that's not quite true. It's not all about that, but it's 90% of keeping your lake healthy and clean is tackling this problem on your property. And even though your property is just one of many, many, many properties, Maggie Shannon, who used to be the executive director at Maine Lakes, she used to say it's death by 1,000 cuts. So every property is just one cut, which one cut isn't going to kill you, but when you have 1,000 across the property, around the lakeshore, or 100 or whatever, then they add up. So identifying areas, these small problem areas on your property, is incredibly important. And then the things that you get out of a Lake Smart program or a Lake Smart evaluation, you want to look for ways to increase vegetation. You want to intercept raindrops so not so much water gets to the ground. You want to stabilize the land. You want to divert rain flow into a sink, someplace where it can be held. You want to install BMPs, best management practices, to slow the flow, and really you want to make your property look more natural, less suburban, which you all know what natural Maine landscapes look like because of where you live up here. So it's such a beautiful place. So, next slide, and I will just try to run through these fairly quickly. All right, I already said this. Best management practices, they reduce the amount of stormwater, they slow the rainwater, and then the result is we're going to reduce non-point source pollution that's going into your lake. Next slide. Just a quick plug, just to make sure, best management practices, some of them are permit by rule, which is a fairly simple process. Some of them are not. So some of them you have to go through a permitting process. So just a good reminder to check with your code enforcement officer about any of these BMPs that I'm going to talk about. Many of them are permit by rule, so it's a fee, but it's not an actual permit process. It's not the same as a full-blown permit process. Okay, next slide. Okay, so some of the things that you can do. So hopefully as I talk about this, you're thinking about your property, and maybe some of these spark, I could do something like that. So driveways and parking areas and camp roads, as you know, are one of the biggest sources of non-point source pollution to lakes. So, and I'll say, all of you who own property around the lake, immediately on the lake, certainly you are the last line of defense. You are, it is your opportunity to stop this pollution going into the lake. But no matter how far away you live, even if you're a mile away from a lake, we see lake impacts when somebody clears a property for development and doesn't follow the rules and doesn't put up sediment fences and cuts too many trees. Your lake a mile away is going to feel the impact of that. And we've seen that over and over again. So it doesn't matter how far away you are from a lake, but certainly these kind of properties are the last line of defense. It's the last chance to stop that phosphorus going in the water. So some of the things you can do, this person planted a berm right here, the bottom of their driveway, so any rainwater coming down the driveway is going to get stopped by that berm and be absorbed and infiltrated by these plants. There's an open top culvert. That's something you can install across your driveway. It's basically a little mini ditch that goes across the driveway and captures water. And then this is kind of these kind of rills and gullies are the kinds of signs that a Lake Smart evaluator would look for when they're on the property. And if you have a problem like this, that something like this could be your solution. And I'll mention at the end, but I know I keep saying our website, lakes.me/BMPs is a page we have that has a lot of resources for all of these things I'm going to talk about. We've tried to collect them all in one place. And one of my favorite things on that website is we have some videos that they're called our Healthy Lake video series, and they walk through BMP installations from start to finish. And so there is an open top culvert installation. You can watch that. You can see exactly what's involved. Most of our videos do have these enthusiastic crews of Youth Conservation Corps members, and so they are they make the work look pretty easy. Sometimes it's not quite as easy. There is some heavy lifting to be done, but anyway, if you're interested in open top culverts, definitely check out our videos. Next slide. So roof runoff, lots of things you can do for roof runoff. If you have roof runoff where it's dripping off the side of your house and then running into the lake, that's a very common thing we see. You can do a drip line trench. We have a video for this one too, where you basically dig out a 18-inch trench, you put in fabric, you fill it with gravel, and that's a really good way to help that water. When it hits the ground, it's going to go down instead of over. And then we have a video for that one. You could also do things like a rain barrel to capture water that's coming off your roof, and then dry wells, which are often put in with drip line trenches. Those often work together, where you have a drip line trench. Maybe there's a downward slope. You have a drip line trench at the bottom of the drip line trench, and basically you install a dry well, which is basically just a big hole that you dig and fill with gravel, and that is a place to hold. Again, you're trying to just hold that rainwater and keep it from flowing overland. All right, next slide. Okay. Ooh, I'm gonna have to go really fast. So better paths, we all have paths around our properties. They can be compacted, and then you get problems like this. It's similar to what you see on the roadway. And so these diverters across a path, and we have something similar to this. Something similar, there's a video on this on our website, but basically a water bar that goes across. You see them on trails all the time, a piece of wood or something to get to direct the rain flow off the trail and into a holding area. And again, you can have a dry well in association with these water bars depending on how much water flow you have. So diverters are a really good thing for paths. Next slide. You can also just think about winding your paths, making, if they go straight to the lake, then the rain's going to go straight to the lake. And just like on a trail, if you're climbing a mountain, switchbacks, if you have the space and ability to meander a path from your house to the lake, that's a really good thing to do. And of course, covering it with absorptive material, again, anything you can do to absorb rainwater. Okay, next slide. If you have steps or steep areas, these are infiltration steps. We have a video for this. Really good method to stop erosion on a slope like this. If you're just walking down the path, if you're going to compact a path, that's going to exacerbate the rainflow problem. But if you put in infiltration steps, you can. Each of these steps actually is a big well and is designed to hold water. Next slide. So smarter lawns, we really try to discourage lawns, and this is where bringing your suburban sort of, I don't know what it is. I have a terrible lawn at home. I don't fertilize it. I hardly ever mow it, so I don't have the lawn, there's a word for it, like the lawn.
Manicure.
I don't have that desire for a manicured lawn. My neighbor hates me because his is extremely manicured to perfection. I don't have that, but some people do, and that's okay. You can bring that aesthetic. That's it, the lawn aesthetic I was thinking. You can bring that aesthetic, but like a nice, like this is a rightly sized lawn, we always say, is like, what are you using your lawn for? What do you need it for? And manage for that. So obviously, cutting way back on fertilizers and herbicides, especially, you can't use fertilizer within 25 feet of the shoreline anyway. Letting your grass grow longer, mowing it less, and raking it less. So next slide. And you might have already seen this kind of slide, but here's turf grass. It's like a little toothbrush in terms of when you think about absorbing water. These are all sort of native plants, and you can see the root systems of some of them are crazy big. And so areas like this, they're just going to absorb more water because they have a bigger root system. Next slide. I like to throw this one in because you want to be like this person here. They're happy, they have birds, they have bees, they have all these native plants, and then this poor guy over here is just like, he's miserable. He's on the shoulder, he has to mow all the time. So don't be that guy. Be this person, and you get tons of benefits for all these other things, but also for lake water quality. Next slide. Healthier septic systems. You all have this handout on the table. Thank you to Cheryl and others for making that available. One easy thing you can do is give this to your neighbor. Take one of these handouts, give it to your neighbor, give it to somebody on your street. It's a really great handout, 4 pages. has some really great tips and ideas for septics, but essentially making sure your septic is pumped every 3 to 5 years, and making sure it's functioning. There's no sweat, there's no soggies, there's no leaking. That's one easy thing to do for your lake. Next slide. These are the kinds of things you want to look for a malfunctioning system. Water pooling, obviously the smell, the green spots you see over there. Next slide. And then, pump every 3 to 5 years. Inspect them, like a formal inspection every 10 years. Now they have cameras, they can put a camera down there and show you. And I had a failing, I'm not on a lake, but I did have a failing septic system, and I was pretty appalled by what I was doing. Luckily, I could switch to sewers, but it's pretty shocking to see what you can see with the technology today. And then keeping leach fields clear from vegetation. Next slide. Buffers, this is a big one, making sure that you have vegetation between your house and the lake. Next slide. So just to be sure, just people know, canopy, the tall trees, and if you have a Lake Smart evaluation, they'll talk about this. Canopy, then the mid-story or the understory, the shrubs, which are low-growing, the ground covers, which are these low ones, and then duff, which is leaves and needles and twigs and all that. Those are the 5 layers of vegetation we're looking for in a buffer. Next slide. So, this is what we like to see for Lake Smart evaluations, is as much as possible, how much vegetation can we get between you and the house. And of course, between your house and the lake. Of course, people want views, and there's certainly ways to have views and be Lake Smart too. Next slide. Next slide, I want to give you a little bit of time for questions. We're really encouraging native plants. There's lots of benefits to native plants. And I should say, if you are interested in the slideshow, I can give you all the slides too, if that would be helpful. I can get that to you afterwards. So native plants, really important. Next slide. And again, the same thing, even, these are cultivated plants, hosta, daylily. Look at their roots compared to our native plants. And we have so many incredible native plants. We have so many incredible resources for how to find and buy and plant native plants. And that's one of our big efforts, is encouraging more native plants on lake shores. Next slide. Live staking, we don't have a lot of information about this on our website, but this is increasingly a really valuable way to get vegetation on your shoreline, partly because it's cheap and it's easy, relatively easy. You basically harvest, and there are some different sources. You basically buy sticks, and they have to be harvested in the spring or the fall, before the bud breaks or right before they go dormant. And you basically just stick them in the ground, and you stick them in, 3/4 of the way in. And then it's amazing to see what happens on this 1/4. Willows are really good live staking. There's certain dogwoods. There's certain species that are really good for live staking. And there are ways to get bundles of live stakes at a discount. So a potential project for a lake association could be to buy the bundles in bulk from a wholesaler and then distribute them among members. So I really encourage you all to think about live staking as a really economical way to add vegetation. Okay, next slide. I think I just have a couple more. Okay, so that was my list of sort of some things you can do. This Lakes.me library has a lot of printed materials. You have most of them here, all of ours. You have copies of everything here. Next slide. I mentioned the Healthy Lakes video series, lakes.me/BNPs. Will really walk you through and illustrate many of the different things. We didn't talk about rain gardens, and I certainly didn't cover every BNP out there, but that's a really great resource. And then next slide. Yeah, so questions. And then we have to do our pledge. So you can say it to yourself. You don't have to say it out loud, but if everybody could just whisper that if you found something in this, all of this, there's one thing you can do, just say, I'm going to do one thing. Okay. You said it out loud. You said it out loud, so science, research tells us you are more likely to do it. So thank you so much, and I'm happy to answer questions.
What happens to the phosphorus if you get it to stay on shore? Does it stay there forever?
Yeah, so it's attached to soil. Yeah, the phosphorus is attached to sediment soil. So it will just stay on land. It will feed just like when you put phosphorus, when you fertilize your garden, it's going to fertilize. It's a natural source of fertilizer for the things that are growing on the lakeshore. It's a great question. Anything else? Oh, yes. Oh, great. Yes, our lake book. So this is great. Did you guys print it? Nice. I haven't seen this.
Yeah, so the lake book we give out when we do our Lake Smart evaluations.
Oh, yeah.
Give that to homeowners.
Yes, this is this is one of my favorite publications, and we're actually going to be reprinting it. Or well, not reprinting. We're going to be updating. And I have like some there's some of the laws are out of date now. Like there's a clean drain dry law, there's a lead sinker law. So yeah, this is a great thing to get if this is a limited edition. And a great thing to get if you're participating in the Lake Smart program. I love it. Thank you.
It's a great book.
Thanks.
I have a quick question. What
Yeah.
about roads, like town roads that are washing? How do you deal with that?
Well, there's this program called Stream Smart, which kind of covers the whole like culvert if it's around a culvert. And there is money available through different sources, through Stream Smart, but that is generally towns that have to take on that responsibility.
So just homeowners going to the town?
Yep, and yep. Yes, and I should say, yes, over and over and over again, which is also what you have to do with the warden service. And I'll just make that plug too, is, they mentioned videotaping. And I will say, if you do have problems on the lake, I talk to so many people who get discouraged, and they're like, well, I'm not going to call the warden service, it doesn't do any good. But it does, because every time you make that call, there's a tick mark that gets made that says they got this complaint from this lake. And he mentioned that lake, I'm blanking on the name, in southern Maine, but it just got a new motor regulation on it. And part of the reason they were successful is they had a record of this. There have been this many calls on this lake over this many years, and that's the flag to have something happen. So I would encourage you to this is not related to roads, but it has to do with persistence, is calling the warden service when you see something. Even if you don't think they'll come out, it really does make a difference. So that's one of the things you can do. So many things to do. Any questions? Any other questions? Well, thank you so much for listening, and I know this is a long morning for you, so thank you so much.
And their website has an incredible amount of resource information. So if you want to plant canopy plants or shrubs or low bush flowers, they have every plant available. So you can go on and research what you should buy, what you should plant. But there's an incredible amount of resources for anything that you can think of on their website. It's great. I use it a lot. All right. Thank you so much.
Cheryl, I just mentioned, anybody that signed up on the Lake Smart clipboard that checked off the Lake Smart, I have sent you the form that starts the process to have the inspection done at your house. You just need to fill out the form and get it back to us, and we'll get you going.
And the Lake Smart inspection is absolutely free. It's voluntary. We're not the police. We're just there to give you suggestions on what you can do to make your property or Lake Smart. Okay, so what's next on the agenda? I think it's Karen. Karen, you want to do the budget?
Hey everyone, this is the proposed budget. Do you have the slide before for actual last year's numbers? Okay, one more. Yeah. Okay, those were not my slides. Okay, I'm just going to run off my notes here. Every year I do a budget and I try to project what we think we're going to spend maximum with what we have available. And last year we came in under budget again. One of our biggest savings was we thought we were going to use New England milfoil for 4 days. We ended up only using them for 3 days. And because we've been working with them so long, they credited us for that 4th day, so we didn't lose any money there. Let me see, I didn't bring my glasses. We budgeted for the general expenses $11,600. The actual was about $7,900. Milfoil expenses, we budgeted $10,000. We came in at $7,500, so we were doing good with savings there. We also did a Christmas tree, I think you all saw in the fall newsletter or spring newsletter, that we tried to do a little give back to the community, and we only spent about $250 on that, so we were happy with that. Grants and town donations, we budgeted $93.94. The actual was $73.25, and the reason the difference is on that is because when we get our grant money, we get 75% up front, and then the last 25% we get once we complete the work. And because we used one less out of 4 days with New England milfoil, we didn't have that expense, so we didn't capture all of the money that we would have gotten or planned on getting because we didn't need it. For budget, for income, donations, we budgeted about $10,000. And I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you that's out here that donates and renews your membership. We came in at $14,800. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We also had a one of our original founders passed away, and in her will, she left us money. So we had about $4,600 that was donated to us through that. That is huge, and we will put that to good use. For our 2025 budget, I think I have, let's see, general expenses budgeted of $11,500, milfoil expenses around $10,000, and we do believe that's going to come in well under because we had budgeted to use New England milfoil, and we ended up using them 2 days instead of 4, so we'll be expending less on that. I want to say thank you to Carl and Jim, who's not here today. They have been literally hand-picking milfoil out in that outlet pond of Lake Christopher, and that saves us a huge amount of money. For income, town grants, towns, and the state, we're estimating $9,000. And then with membership, hat sales, and tree donations, we're estimating around $13,000. And between the difference of what we're budgeting for income and expenses, we should be to the good about $416. If anybody has any questions on any of our finance stuff or what we spend, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
Can you explain your expense for donations?
Expense for donations.
Or your in budget donations?
Yes, we get donations.
No,
It's not an expense for a donation. Oh, yes, I'm sorry, you are correct. We donate to Maine Lakes and Lake Stewards, I believe, the two that we do. And as she was mentioning, we haven't paid them yet. We give about $2 for every one of our members. That's why I do that final count today and finish. This is like the end of my year for our memberships. So at the end of today's meeting, I'll go through and total up how many members we have, and then we will send a donation into both of those
So
groups.
that number is two times the number of the donation.
$2 for every member, yep. And we get tons of information from them, so we think that that $2 is
Yeah, I just-
well worth the support we get.
Donation.
Yes, nope, I totally understand, and I tried to simplify this,
Yeah, I
you know,
understand.
happy to answer those questions, so. Anybody else?
Congratulations.
Thank you, thank you. Just again, a big thank you to each and every one of you for not only donating and being members, but for showing up today. We appreciate your help.
Hey y'all, my name is Kimberly Junta, and I am the representative of the lake representatives. How's that? Is that better? Smidge better? Okay. My name is Kimberly Junta. I am the representative for the lake representatives. And I'd just like to acknowledge, thank you all for coming today. It really means a lot to us, the volunteers who work behind the scenes, to see all of your faces here showing up and just participating. It means a lot to us to know that we're part of a team who's looking out for our lakes. And speaking of which, our team of lake representatives, you're all probably on the lake. I don't know if you know your lake representatives, but they are Lori Fitch. You just like to stand up and say hello. Of South Pond, David Hansen of Indian Pond, Kelly Bickford at Twitchell. I think she just left. Ben Weigel of Overset. Is Ben here? Jim St. Germain of Hicks Pond. Hi, Jim. And Jerry Nelson of Mud Pond. And I'm on Round Pond. So we have 2 vacancies on North Pond and Lake Christopher. So if you are on either one of those ponds and love your lake and just want to be the eyes and ears for your lake and communicate with the board and make sure you're getting the support you need to steward the lake well, let me know. I'd be happy to connect you and give you more information, and thank you so much. So keep in touch with your representatives. If you don't know them, please introduce yourself to them today and say hello, and make sure you have an open line of communication. All right, thanks again.
Hi, so I'm Carl Weissman. I'm the water quality person for the Lakes Association. I'm learning as I go along. I certainly was not a lake expert. I've been doing this for a few years, and luckily our CLA has Jim Chandler, who's not here today, but he's been my mentor and a great resource. So most of our water testing that we accomplish is via the Secchi disc, and we do that because no matter what's going wrong with a lake and causing problems, the first thing that seems to happen is that it gets less clear. And this Secchi disc operation is just a way to measure the clarity exactly. It's a glass disc with the contrasting colors that you literally just lower into the water. You position the boat in the deepest point of the lake that's predetermined. Depending on what kind of boat you're in, you try to get comfortable and put the scope in the water that has a plexiglass bottom to get all the reflections, and then so you can see down the bottom nicely, and measure precisely when that disappears. And it might be only 3 or 4 meters. The meter is a little more than a yard, so it might be as little as 10, 15 feet in the water. At that point, that's a signal to call for help. The lake is dirty. We have the 9 ponds we look after, and the textbook example is South Pond. South Pond is as clean and clear as they come almost. And you can see more than 12 meters into the water. And so I'm happy to have help with this, like Vicki Gammon does Wishel Pond, and Jerry Nelson does Mud Pond, and Dave Hansen does Indian Pond, and Laurie Fitch and Kelly Becker both work on their ponds. And there's room for more. We could use more help, because Cheryl and I do North Pond, and we can connect to South Pond and Round Pond all in one trip. But anyway, the fact is that the pond, the amount of the depth of the Secchi reading varies throughout the season. When it rains more, the lake gets a little less clear. So you have to keep track of. I mean, we try to go out every 2 or 3 weeks and take these measurements. And the Lake Stewards of Maine have had volunteers like us do this for decades. So if you go to the Lake Stewards of Maine website, you can look up, there's a place to search for your pond. You can just put in Greenwood or Woodstock, and it'll show you the list of ponds, and you click one, and you can find out an unfathomable amount of information about your pond, because it's been looked at for years and years. So far this year, there'll be a slide, but it'll be too small to see anyway. But like I say, they vary through the season, vary from year to year. But on the Lake Stewards website, there'll be the longest historic readings. And I'm happy to say that our ponds do not vary much from the historic average. So our ponds are doing quite well. So in addition to the Secchi district, we also, our CLA at this point has 2 dissolved oxygen meters that we are able to use. These are a little bit more of a project. So a typical outing is you first do the Secchi district reading, and then do the dissolved oxygen survey where you measure at the surface, it measures temperature and the amount of oxygen in the water. So you do it at the surface, and then every meter down. Our meter is, the meter has a 20 meter cable. So I have to check it. It takes a while. You have to wait for the readings to stabilize. And we're looking at that because oxygen is important to all the wildlife in the lake, especially like trout, say. But again, our textbook example of South Pond, even at 21 meters deep, the water is nice and cold, and it still has approximately 10% oxygen. Twitchell Pond and North Pond both do show oxygen depletion later in the season and near the bottom, but it's not horrendous, and it's not new. It varies with the season. When in the fall, when the water cools off, the water mixes again, and the cycle continues. And the other important thing is the total phosphorus, as we just learned about in Lake Smart. The trick is that too much phosphorus is still in parts per billion. There's very little phosphorus in the water, but a very little more than normal is horrible. So by the end of this month, we're going to do a total phosphorus test in each of our ponds, which involves just going out and we get a special kit from the state. With, 2 clean flasks. You have to scoop, carefully follow the procedure and scoop some clean water and pour it in the flask, keep it cold, and deliver it to the lab. And hopefully those will also hold with the normal seasonal average, the historic average. So I certainly want to thank all the helpers, and hopefully we can get some more helpers along the way, and continue doing this every few weeks. Any questions? That was a quickie explanation, sure.
If you would like to help and do water quality testing, you can get certified through Lake Stewards of Maine. They provide the training and the certification. They also have lots of information on their websites. They have videos on how to do an invasive plant control. There's a lot of information. So you have to get certified through them. You have to fill out the data sheets that they provide. You will need a wind speed indicator. You need a GPS because you need to do your testing at the deepest points of the lake. South Pond is just one point, but Lake Christopher, there's 2 Midas locations, so you have to do the testing in 2 spots.
The important part is not that it's the deepest, but you're doing it in the same place every time.
Right.
And also our own CLA website has our own history of our own testing, so you can find it there. We try to enter the new information as we go along. Any other questions?
If someone's interested in learning about it, will you take them out so they can experience
Oh,
it before they
Yeah.
get trained?
Yeah, and, just recently we had some residents from Concord Pond that wanted to do that. So they'll soon be doing it. The trick is because you need to do it when it's fairly calm and ideally fairly bright. It's hard to plan ahead and make a date and meet people. It's usually nice to say, "Oh, great, we can do that right now," and then go do it. So forgive us if we don't give you much notice.
Any other questions?
Yeah.
Here,
Okay.
about that.
As you heard from Karen, we have been using the New England milfoil as a professional team to harvest and to remove the invasive milfoil from the outlet pond adjacent to Lake Christopher. This year we got down to using them only for two whole days. Because we last year after they did their harvesting, Jim and I and other helpers went back and pulled more of the weeds that survived the process. As anyone who works in these in that pond, it stirs up the mud. So once you get going, before long you really can't see that well. In spite of being the experts, the professional divers are under there gathering all the weeds, but there's always some that escape notice. Jim was using drones to take aerial photographs and counting up the weeds afterwards. But anyway, we learned that I was going out there with that little kid's kayak.
Those drain holes, little drain holes.
Yeah, you can put the weeds on and the water drains back in. But to do that, you're wading in mud that's sometimes, it's always at least knee deep, sometimes worse. You just waddle around in there. But we're trying to, we have to go back again now. They did those, what weeks were those? The harvesting was in July. So we're going to go back and clean up. We're going to clean up the pond, that outlet pond better. But the best news was in Lake Christopher itself. There's one cove that's been a 15-year battle.
No, it's been over 20 years.
Yeah.
So in order to declare milfoil eradicated, you have to do an inspection on the pond, and if you don't find any milfoil for 3 years, then we can declare it eradicated. So unfortunately on Lake Christopher, we made it 2 years, we couldn't find any milfoil.
the third year we did, so it's been over 20 years, and it's not eradicated.
Yeah, so in that cove, or just actually just outside the cove, this one morning with the New England milfoil folks, we had 8 little floating markers. We had 8 little buoys, and the diver pulled 8 plants or clumps, and we believe that removes all the milfoil from that area.
Yeah, so what we do is we do an invasive plant control. We put buoys in the pond where we find them so we can go back and pull them. So that's why the markers were there.
Yeah, so that's the most important milestone. We think we did. We pulled all milfoil we could find from that outside that cove. So next year that might be a even better situation. The outlet pond is another story. That's like place it grows like mad there.
Perfect environment.
We did it without the use of the big dash boat. In the past years, we borrowed a dash boat from the Oregon Water Service, dash for diver-assisted suction harvesting, and we pulled hundreds of onion bags full of weeds out with it. This time we're measuring it by 5-gallon buckets of weeds. But is there one more slide?
No, so one on the end.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a picture of a milfoil that has been harvested, but these larger leaves here, those are where the plant actually came up through the surface and was blossoming in the air.
So you gotta pull them before they develop seeds, otherwise it just spreads everywhere.
And some pictures, we just dump the milfoil in the woods up high and dry where it'll never make it back into the pond, and it composts it. The next year you can hardly tell where it was. So we're continuing that battle, but we think we have the solution in both the cove and the outlet pond.
I don't need to talk about it, you can just look at it. These are invasive plants, so we have those invasive plants in the quick guide, and if you want to buy the colored version, you can also buy that. That's this one you can take in your boat, and it's got beautiful color pictures, and it has the breakdown of all the leaves and stems and what to look for. This is wonderful, and this was Lake Stewarts of Maine. Great information. More invasives. And they already, Susan already talked about algae blooms and cyanobacteria. We already talked about that.
Game warden.
Yep, game warden talked about that, I think.
Hi, my name's Tom Franks. I'm the communications guy for the CLA, which means I do the web page and the Facebook pages and run the projector.
Newsletters.
And first of all, I just want to thank Josh Morton for coming to video for us from the Western Hills Access Television, and also Brian Kinsella for running the Zoom meeting.
We had several participants and encouraged questions, but none today, but everything went well.
Good. One thing I want to point out is just the website, communitylakessassociation.org. A lot of information there about what we do, what we've done in the past, and what's happening, what's going to be going on for the year. We also have our Facebook page, which is called Western Maine Community Lakes Association. Our email address there, Con Lee's, so I'm not gonna read it out, but that's it. We do newsletters every spring and fall, and you can find them around Bethel, and especially in the grocery store, mainly provisions, or at the local hub, or in the town halls. We'll all have them. And we do accept membership dues and donations online now on our webpage. It's done through PayPal, which is also in association with Venmo. And this is, some of the ponds, just want to point out, have their own Facebook groups. North Pond Neighbors, which is run by Amy White Chapman. Lake Christopher Neighbors and South and Round Pond Neighbors are Facebook groups that I created, and then there's another one, Twitchell Pond Neighbors. Whenever you want to know what's going on any of the ponds, check out those Facebook group pages. You get lots of pictures of eagles and loons and jet ski shows up on a pond. And has a QR code just showing if you zoom on that, it'll take you to our webpage. That's about it. Any questions? All right. Thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate it.
And please take literature, give it to your neighbors. We have lots. Thank you, everybody.